I'll turn my own camera off.
And you have slides, right?
I do. Yes, sir.
Okay, so go ahead and you can share your screen and the recording is on.
All right.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Emergency Preparedness for Home Health and Hospice Providers throughout Louisiana and Mississippi. And I'm very, very happy that we have Miss Allison Hughes with us from Region 2, who is going to talk to us today about mm, holiday considerations for safety during this holiday season. So, Allison, thank you for um, suggesting this presentation and for actually doing the presentation itself.
Absolutely. Just want to make sure that everyone can see my screen.
We can.
The slides are up. Okay. All right. Perfect. Well, good afternoon. As Jamie said, my name is Allison Hughes. I am one of the designated regional coordinators for healthcare emergency preparedness and response in Region 2 of Louisiana, which is the Baton Rouge and surrounding areas. So as he said, when we were brainstorming some ideas for continuing our weekly briefings on emergency preparedness, I thought maybe it would be appropriate for this time of year to go through some seasonal safety recommendations or just things to consider. And so my presentation is going to be focused around protecting not only yourself, but others. And so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. The first thing I wanted to talk to the group about is personal safety. As you are aware, they tell our first responders this as well, that you always have to look out for yourself first in order to protect others. And so personal safety is something that, we can all agree is this time of year is a little bit more of a concern as we're moving about. The time change has made it get dark earlier in the evenings. And so just some things that you may want to consider. So I've got 3 bullet points here that we're going to talk about. The first one is being aware. Awareness of your surroundings. I really can't iterate that enough. Staying connected with others, letting others know where you're going to be, checking in and out with people. And then finally, if you do find yourself in a situation where you feel endangered, is how to raise an alarm so that you can attract the attention of others who may be able to assist you. So with that, we will start with awareness. So in our world today, our electronic world, we often find ourselves with distractions. And I think probably we could all agree the number one thing being our cell phones. If you just take a look around you, especially as you're traveling in and out of retail establishments, you probably notice there are people as they walk out of the doors, even into the dark areas in the parking lot. They're looking at their cell phones, answering texts and things such as that. So that was one thing that I thought was really important to note, is that you definitely want to avoid distractions when you're moving about, particularly in the evening time when it's getting dark outside sooner than it did during the summer. So some of these tips are going to be more for your personal daily lives. Others are going to kind of cross over into the occupational side of things. So hopefully, you will take away some things that you can use in both parts of your daily activities. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is when it's possible to stay in well-lit areas. Obviously, when you're going to retail establishments this time of year, some parking lots are better lit than others. There are places in the parking lot that may be better lit. I would recommend that if you can to stay in areas that have really good lighting. That's going to make a difference whenever you're trying to stay aware of things in your surroundings. Note areas, even as you're going to take care of individuals in their homes, note areas where individuals could hide. Again, trying to stay in areas that are better lit, but also taking note of, the greenery around there, places where shrubs and bushes get overgrown. And those can actually harbor individuals with malintent. So one of the things that we do for our hospitals and agencies for healthcare is that we always try to, when we're doing security risk assessments of the buildings, is to make sure that we don't have areas where our shrubs or greenery could actually conceal individuals. So I would recommend this as you're going to individuals' homes as well. Just take a look around and make sure that you are avoiding those areas if you can. And then the last thing that I wanted to bring forth on this slide is always making sure that you have an escape route. You definitely want to avoid being blocked in or being trapped in an area. Make sure you always know where the exits are, and try to make sure that you're able to easily get to those exits in case you need to quickly get away. Even when you're parking, it's better if you're, at individuals' homes, you're parking where you can easily get in a car, in your vehicle, and get away. Try to avoid pulling into an area where you could be blocked in. So under the same category of a wellness, of awareness, excuse me, I thought it would be important to talk about mental health, especially during the holidays and as we talk about the seasons changing. Make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. As healthcare providers, it's very easy to sort of focus on others and put ourselves last. But truly, during this time of year, we really need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves so that we can better take care of others, our patients, and their families. So I listed a few things on here that you probably already know. But to me, they were worth mentioning as a gentle reminder. Exercise. I know that you've probably heard this is um, the best thing that you can do for stress relief, and probably one of the most underutilized strategies for stress relief this time of year. Make sure that you're getting exercise, even if you're just taking a walk in the evenings, even on a lunch break. Just make sure that you continue moving and doing something for yourself. Rest, obviously that's extremely important. And I think a lot of times that we mistake rest for being equaling sleep. Sleep is an important form of rest, but rest comes in the form, can look a lot of different ways, even just sitting outside in the evenings, taking some deep breaths, doing something you enjoy, just resting your mind as well. And then a healthy intake. So I'm guilty of this time of year. There's lots of sweets, parties, and dips, and alcohol and those types of things. I would encourage you to make sure that you're taking care of yourself in the way of what you're taking in. And so that with those things, I think if you put those together, it really does equal taking care of yourself, so that you're better able to take care of others. The next bullet point I have on here is to check on others. I think that as healthcare providers, this comes a little bit more easily for us than it is to take care of ourselves, but just making sure that you think to check on neighbors and people outside of your realm of work. This time of year is difficult, as I had mentioned earlier, for reasons of stress or loss of loved ones. Sadness and grief are definitely prevalent this time of year. Avoiding isolation. I think we can all agree that, the pandemic, one thing we learned during the pandemic, it was that isolation, is really does not help us mentally. It's better to be with others and to talk through things with others, and then recognizing when help is needed, and encouraging, each other and our patients to reach out whenever help's needed. And so one of the things that I put here at the bottom of this slide is a link to the website for Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Human Services, this site has some excellent resources. One of them that it offers is the Disaster Distress Helpline phone number. So hopefully you'll find that helpful as we move through the holiday season. There may be someone who needs that information. And then closer to home, I tried to include some links here for resources, both for our Louisiana providers and our Mississippi providers. So the Louisiana Department of Health, as well as the Department of Mississippi Healthcare, both of those agencies have a number of excellent resources within their sites. And so those are linked here for you if, on your own time, if you wanted to take a look at what they have to offer so that you can share that with your patients, families, friends, and so on. All right. And so moving from awareness, let's talk about staying connected. So one of the best things that we can do, both for our mental health, but also for personal safety, is staying connected with others. So I would recommend checking in with colleagues or friends, upon arrival and departure from your assignments in taking care of patients. But this also goes with, if you're out and about shopping or running errands and those types of things, it's always good to stay connected and let someone know where you're going to be. The other thing that I noted on this slide is to consider using a two-person strategy where you've got difficult cases. So if you know that there's a particular area that's maybe not as safe as some of the other areas where you're seeing patients, if possible, bring in a colleague. I know that's not always the situation where you can do that, but as we've always learned, there's safety in numbers. But definitely, I think checking in and out, just letting someone know that you're safe is definitely appropriate and doable as you're taking care of your patients. And then if you do find yourself in a situation where you feel that you are at risk for harm or you feel unsafe, there's a number of ways that we can alarm others, or that we can actually, make some kind of noise to bring attention to the situation. That's usually the last thing that a perpetrator is wanting, is for attention to be brought to the situation. So most of us have remotes on our keychains for our vehicles. Consider hitting the alarm for your vehicle. There's also whistles that you can get to put on a keychain. You may want to make an emergency phone call to alert someone that you don't feel safe. You may even have a keyword or code word that you want to use over that call that you've pre-established with them or with a buddy or colleague. And then last but not least, shouting if you need help. So there's lots of different ways that you can alarm, or bring attention to a situation. These are just some of the main ones that I thought of when I was putting the presentation together. All right, and as we're moving on, let's move away from personal safety, and we're going to shift our focus over to fire safety. So under fire safety, there's multiple categories here, and we'll go through the following. We'll talk about cooking. We'll talk about safety when it comes to heaters, our holiday lights and decorations, and then finally generators when we need those during power outages. So according to the National Fire Protection Association, I have some statistics here I wanted to share with you that I found interesting. The fire departments across the United States respond to approximately 790 fires in homes that begin from decorations. Now, this is excluding Christmas trees. And when you put Christmas trees in the mix, that number increases even more. I found it interesting that the electrical distribution or lighting equipment was involved in more than 2 out of 5 home Christmas tree fires. So looking at just the Christmas trees, almost half of them was due to the lighting or electrical distribution. And we'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. If you look at the Christmas tree fires, 1 in 5 were started by lamps or bulbs. And unfortunately, 8% of that was started by candles. So obviously this time of year, candles are are truly something that we use in decorations and ambiance. So just encouraging both you, your families, and your patients to be careful and their families when having candles within the home. I did find it extremely shocking that in December and January, it's the highest number of fires that begin due to candles. So 11% of the fires in homes were due to candles in December and January alone. And so if you like statistics and you want some more information on that, the National Fire Protection Association has some excellent information and data that you can share within your organizations. I have the website link there below if you just prefer to take a look on your own time. What they've also got that I really, really like, I'm very visual, and so I found these to be excellent. They're one-pagers. They call them their safety tip sheets. And they've got them for a number of different things, but you can go to their site, print these. I just put some examples on the screen here. They've got some excellent information. It's very quick, brief, and again, some nice graphics here. So the ones I have included today are for the winter holiday safety, Christmas tree safety, so a whole page on Christmas tree safety, particularly those who are having live Christmas trees in the home this time of year, and then cooking safety. And so again, I've got the link down below where you can find a number of those safety tip sheets, not only for this time of year, but for throughout the entire year. So some great resources there that you can share with your patients and families. And moving on, if you're a person who likes checklists, this is a really nice tool that you can share. This is the Home Fire Safety Checklist, and it is put out by the U.S. Fire Administration and also in cooperation with FEMA. And so, these are some things that can be looked for within the home to make sure that we're protecting ourselves from fire. It goes through smoke alarms, cooking safety, electrical and appliance safety, candles, carbon monoxide alarms, smoking, heating, and it talks about the home escape plan. And then there's some blanks there for follow-up items if you've got some families or patients that have very unique things within the home. And again, the link is there at the bottom if you want to access this resource as well. So again, like I did under the mental health resources, I have some resources and links here for each of the states represented on the call today. So I started with Louisiana. I thought this was an excellent resource. The Office of the State Fire Marshal for Louisiana supports a program called Operation Save a Life, where your patients and their families may qualify for a free smoke alarm. So there's an application there, a little process for completing a request for a free fire alarm. A free smoke alarm. There's the website linked there for you. And I will tell you this as well. You may have seen this on the news last year. If those families don't have the resources to install those smoke alarms, the local fire departments will actually do that for them. So it's a huge effort across the state to make sure that our families have what they need in the home to detect smoke. So more information on their site, in addition to the smoke alarms, is on carbon monoxide detectors and generator safety. And then there's other things as well. So again, I would encourage you to take a look at this. If your patients and their families, or even your own friends and family, do not have these resources, take a look at this, and it may be something that they qualify for. Moving on over to the Mississippi Office of the State Fire Marshal, their website is listed here for you as well. Their website had some excellent information as I was browsing through it on family escape plans, which I thought was excellent for our patients. especially those, if they're receiving home care, they may have mobility issues. As you're aware, they may be nonverbal, on and on. And so I thought this was probably a really important thing, not only for, this time of year, but really any time of year, having a family escape plan. It talks about holiday decorating and then smoke alarms as well on their site. So I would encourage you to take a look at these as well. All right, and so let's move on over to cooking and talk about that. Here in the South, we love to cook. It's one way that we celebrate seasons and holidays, special occasions, and truly just something that we love. So I know your patients may not necessarily be cooking, some of them may, but really this would probably pertain more to their families. There is some excellent resources on the FEMA.gov site. I have it linked here below again for you, from the U.S. Fire Association. I'm sorry, U.S. Fire Administration. They have some excellent graphics. I pulled 3 of them that really stood out to me, but they have handouts, messaging that you can share on your social media pages, on your own sites, internet sites and things like that. But they're excellent. They're short. They have the pictograms there, so they quickly get the message across in a very simple way. So the first one talks about preventing cooking fires by refraining from cooking when you're tired or taking meds that make you drowsy. Just a nice reminder there. They talk about keeping things away from the stove that could be flammable or catch fire. And then they talk about microwave fires. So I thought these were some excellent resources. To be honest with you, there were many, many more. So take a look at that. These things they have available for you to download or share however you feel appropriate. And as we're moving on from cooking, we'll talk about heaters. This time of year, we're all trying to stay warm when the weather starts getting cooler. So portable heaters is really what I had in mind here for this slide. I think one of the most important things that we can talk about is the positioning of those heaters, keeping them away from fabrics and flammables. So as you're entering those patients' homes, you are an additional set of eyes. Sometimes we get kind of accustomed to our own surroundings and we don't notice the hazards. But you with a fresh set of eyes may see something that the family has not seen. Keeping those a safe distance from our patients. Again, as you're aware, we have patients that may be nonverbal. They have mobility issues, maybe bedbound. Depending on their circumstances, they may not be able to feel that the heat is too much. So we want to be careful of burns and things like that. The location where they're placed, they need to be monitored. So we definitely don't want to put them somewhere where family or caretakers are not able to see them and visualize them. Making sure that we're avoiding trip hazards. So with this, I mean the cords and just the devices themselves. And then the last thing is placing those heaters on a level surface on the ground. Some of them could easily tip over. I've seen them placed, on a table and things like that. One thing you may want to just gently remind folks is that, heat rises. And so really the best place to have it is on the ground. That way you get the most out of the device. So for safety purposes and for actual use of the electricity, want to make sure those are on the ground. All right, we'll talk about holiday lights. So this is what I meant when I was talking about the Christmas trees. I'm guilty of this myself, but I've learned over the years it's quite a dangerous practice, and better not to do this. So the first thing I have listed here is to avoid daisy chaining too many strands of lights. And then also extension cords. So if you're not familiar with that term, daisy chaining means plugging them in end to end to end, just to create this big long chain of lights. Usually it will tell you how many strands can be plugged into one another. So I want to say it's usually about 3 at the most. So just making sure that that is not a practice that you are getting caught up in. Same thing with extension cords. Ensuring that the indoor and outdoor lights are being used appropriately. So they are, obviously there are some that are not meant to be used in one or the other settings. So making sure we have the appropriate lights in the appropriate areas. This probably is something that you're already aware of, but making sure we turn them off before going to bed. One of the things that you can recommend to your patients or their families is having the timer set on the lights to where they will go off. That way if they fall asleep and forget, those lights are being cut off with a timer. And then using caution near flammable items. More on holiday lights. This is more about using candles. So we want to make sure that that we're exercising caution with open flames. Again, just like the heaters, never leaving those unattended. And now there are a lot of options for flameless candles. So they do tend to be a little more expensive, but they are an option that's a little bit safer than the traditional candles. Smoke alarms, again, I can't reiterate this enough. Making sure they're present in the home and that the batteries are fresh. So the recommendation is typically that the batteries are changed twice a year, when we spring forward and when we fall back with the time change. So we just fell back, a month or two ago. We want to make sure that the batteries are fresh within our smoke alarms. That goes not only for ourselves, but asking about that with our patients and their families. And again, there's another website linked here below if you would like some more holiday safety tips from FEMA. And we'll wrap it up talking about generators. So I know that the last presentation kind of touched on generators as well. I think I have another slide on winter weather safety as well. But generators should always be used in well-ventilated areas. Never, ever use them indoors. One of the things that probably should be considered when using generators is a carbon monoxide monitor within the home. As you know, that this carbon monoxide is odorless, so it's very difficult to detect it. And when the levels get high, that's when it's causing problems. So we want to make sure that we are monitoring those levels within the home. And then exercising caution when we need to refuel those generators. So making sure that they are turned off and that they are allowed to cool before they're being refueled. And again, FEMA has an excellent fact sheet. It's a linked here for those of you that would like some more information on generator safety, or if you want to distribute that among your patients. So I didn't want to touch too much on winter weather and travel safety because the Weather Service did an excellent job last week of talking about that. But just thought if you weren't on that call, some of the things that that may be worth mentioning today again is, as we're moving through the winter months, we need to be very cautious when it comes to ice. We're not in South Louisiana and Mississippi. We are not really accustomed to driving over icy roads that have snow and sleet on it. So in those instances when we do get that type of weather, just being very careful on roadways, bridges, of course, and elevated portions of the interstate. So as you're moving out and about, trying to take care of your patients, just be aware of those. Not only that, when you're in vehicles, but also on walkways. So we do see a number of injuries during the winter weather periods where ice has, accumulated on sidewalks, stairs, as you're going to take care of your patients, and ramps. I know probably a good number of them have ramps if they are wheelchair patients. So just wanted to reiterate that. Be very, very careful. When we fall as adults, it can be a challenge in recovering from that. So some of the resources I have linked for you at the bottom of the screen here. We did talk about this during hurricane season. 511la.org is for the Louisiana Department of Transportation. It has real-time information on road conditions, road closures, things like that. I've also linked the Mississippi Department of Transportation website there for you next. They have an excellent landing page where you can get information for the state of Mississippi, and then some other resources for winter weather and travel safety under the ready.gov website. And that concludes my presentation today. Again, wanted to thank you for the opportunity to share some information with you. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I've got my contact information here on the screen, and then have also provided Jamie with a copy of the presentation. So Jamie, you're welcome to send that out to the group. So the links, let me stop sharing.
Um, Allison, that was excellent. I really appreciate that, and I'm so happy that I was able to record your session so that we can even spread it even further. Some of the things that you said just sort of stimulated my thinking around this. And you were talking about being awareness of your surroundings. And one of the things that I noticed most recently is how because of pandemic and our encouragement of the use of mask, that um, masks are complicating our situational awareness because all of a sudden you see folks wearing masks who are walking along the street without anyone around them, and it always makes me a little bit more cautious when I'm seeing folks wearing a mask, and there's no one else around them, but they're in open areas. So I know we're becoming used to seeing people with masks, but I think that there's some caution that people need to be aware of when they see those isolated folks wearing masks like that. Is there
Yeah,
something else going on?
that's an
Um,
excellent point, Jamie. I think, what's their intent? Are they concealing their identity, or are
exactly.
they truly trying to protect themselves? But you're right. I mean, one of the things that we do as people is we learn to read the nonverbal cues,
Exactly.
facial expressions and things like that. And so
And
I
masks
absolutely
become
agree.
so ubiquitous because of pandemic. I don't want people to let their guard down just because they see somebody with a mask, especially when it's strange when it's 80 degrees and somebody has a hoodie on and they have a mask on their face, and that kind of stuff. So just be aware of that. Also, you were talking about where people are. I know a lot of hospice nurses and social workers, when we get out of a home and they get into their car and they start writing their notes right then and there. That's not a good practice, and because you're not aware of what's going on. And we've had several situations where folks have been in their cars writing notes where people have come up and either knocked, or we actually had a nurse that was abducted several years ago. She was in the car outside a patient's home. Someone opened the car door and pulled her out, and she was physically and sexually assaulted from that. So I just want make sure people are not using time in their cars to write their notes. Write your notes inside patients' homes or back in the office, but don't get back into your car outside of a patient's home and think just because my door is locked, that I'm going to be safe there. I thought it was an excellent idea about that you raised about folks, from the IDT making visits together. Maybe the social worker and the nurse, or the social worker and the chaplain, can make their visits together in those areas where where people feel unsafe. I'm not talking about every patient, but there are areas where folks just don't feel safe, and traveling in numbers is always a good practice. I noticed in terms of when you were talking about alarms, I noticed the other day by accident that if you take your iPhone and you press both sides of both buttons on both sides, all of a sudden it gives you an SOS emergency call. I don't know. I've never used it, so I don't know exactly who it
Where it
calls. I don't know
connects.
if it's 911 or not, but I think that's something that we should investigate in terms of who gets called on those SOS. But it's just a matter of, holding both sides of your iPhone phone, and that's another alert system. Again, I'm not sure exactly where it goes, but I think we should find out. Also, I remember when I was a hospice social worker, nurses did what was called a home safety evaluation. Just do all of those things that you were talking about with regards to looking around and seeing another set of eyes inside of the home. Patients and family members sort of, uh, they become oblivious to obvious things that outsiders might see that may be, you know, a threat, like curtains near a heater and things like that. And our hospice nurses used to do home safety evaluations, and I was going to ask if there were any home health agents, any home health nurses on today's call. Do you all do that regularly as a home a home safety evaluation to see, where folks may, you know, where falls might be more prevalent in a home, where there may be fire and safety, fire issues or generators. We're constantly preaching during hurricane season. If you're going into someone's home and there's a generator, make sure they know how to use that generator. Yes, home safety evaluations is done on admit and periodically afterwards. Thank you, Jeannie, for doing that. I'm glad to hear that that's part of our comprehensive evaluation. Then, great. And the resources that you provided are extremely valuable. And I hope and I want to encourage providers to go to those resources, download them, print them up, and distribute them out to your patients. A piece of paper is much more likely to get read by your patients and family members than links on their phone, things like that. If you actually can leave a piece of paper in their homes, I think that there's chances that you can make folks more aware of these safety tips that you're bringing up. And I, I want to thank you for it. Excellent evaluation. Well, I've been talking a lot. I'm just wondering, are there any other ideas or thoughts that people on today's call might have around increasing safety for your patients and your staff, uh, especially during these winter and short daylight hours?
So Jamie and Allison, yesterday, Allison wasn't here with our group, but we were having a conversation about Uber drivers and getting into an Uber. And what a bunch of us said was, when I get into the Uber, I get on my phone and I say, oh yes, I'm in the Uber and I'm with Jamie, the driver, and we're going to, so that if there is an issue. So I'm wondering, is that something like a home health nurse or hospice nurse could do when they enter a home if they're not really comfortable? They could call their company or whatever, and they may do this and say, hey, I'm in Jamie's home, I'm in Jamie Boudreaux's home, and as soon as I leave, get ready to leave, I'm going to call you back. Just so that they know, hey, somebody knows I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. I saw a notice not too long ago that I think it's the state Medicaid office is now requiring verification, visit verification. And so like CNAs and nurses, and when you make home visits now, you have to dial someone's a number from that patient's home to verify that you actually are there. That's not just a safe. It's not just a verification to make sure that visits are being made, but it's also can be used as a way of making sure that people are safe. So I like this idea that that you get into a patient's home and you have to use their phone and dial a number to verify that you are there, and that you're. I'm not sure exactly where that's going, but I thought that could be a really good safety measure as well. Um, I see someone, Carla Russell says, avoid parking in driveways. You may get blocked in and not be able to get out of that driveway. That's a great point. We do that all the time. Pulling into patients' homes, and somebody will come in behind us, and you got to wait until they leave. And thank you, Miss Russell. I appreciate that. Anyone else have any comments?
No, but it was a great
Yeah,
presentation.
Allison, thank you. I learned a lot listening to you. It reminded me about being more situational aware of my surroundings. Not just personally, but professionally as well. So thank you so much for your presentation. And I just want to let everyone know that we did record this presentation. I will be putting it up on our YouTube channel, but I'll also be distributing it to all of the at-risk registry folks so that they will have this as a possible in-service for your staff. And feel free to use these with your staff so that we can increase greater patient and staff safety this year. Thank you so much, Allison, again for the presentation. And if no one has any other questions of Allison or of me today, we're going to go ahead and end today's session, and we'll see you all next week, same time, same station.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.